Like one of the talks about Neuralink that's really promising is people with spinal cord issues, injuries, people that can't move their body, and being able to hotwire that, where
Yeah,
essentially it controls all these parts of your body that you couldn't control anymore. And so that would be an amazing thing for people that are injured, for amazing thing for people that are, they're paralyzed, they have all sorts of neurological conditions. That is probably one of the first, and that's what Elon's talked about as well. One of the first implementations, the restoration of sight, cognitive function enhanced for people that have brain issues.
that's tremendously exciting.
Yeah,
And like many other technologies, I don't think we can stop neural interfaces, nor because of the like great good that's going to happen along the way. But I also
right.
don't think we know where it goes.
It's Pandora's box for sure. And I think when we open it, it's just, we're not going to go back. Just like we're not going to go back to no computers without some
For
sort of
sure.
natural disaster.
By the way, I mean this is a great compliment. You are one of the most neutral people I have ever heard talk about the merge coming. You're just like, yeah, I think it's going to happen. You know, it's be good in these ways, bad in these ways, but you seem like unbelievably neutral about it, which is always something I admire.
I try to be as neutral about everything as possible, except for corruption, which I think is just like one of the most massive problems with the way our culture is governed. I think corruption is just and the influence of money is just a giant, terrible issue. But in terms of like social issues and in terms of the way human beings believe and think about things, I try to be as neutral as possible because I think the only way to really truly understand the
Yeah.
way other people think about things is try to look at it through their mind. And if you have this inherent bias and you have this like very rigid view of what's good and bad and right and wrong, I don't think that serves you very well for understanding why people differ. And so I try to be as neutral and as objective as possible when I look at anything. This is a skill that I've learned. This is not something I had in 2009 when I started this podcast. This podcast I started just fucking around with friends, and I had no idea what it was. I mean, there's no way I could have ever known. And but also had no idea what it was going to do to me, and as far as the evolution of me as a human being. I am so much nicer. I'm so much more aware of things. I'm so much more conscious of the way other people think and feel. I'm just a totally different person than I was in 2009, which is hard to recognize. It's
That's
hard
really
to
that's
believe.
really cool.
But that it's just an inevitable consequence of this unexpected education that I've received.
Did the empathy kind of like come on linearly?
Yes.
That was not a
No, it came on recognize. Well, first of all, it came on recognizing that the negative interactions on social media that I was doing, they didn't help me. They didn't help the person. And then having compassion for this person that's fucked up or done something stupid, like it's not good to just dunk on people. Like there's no benefit there other
yeah.
than to give you some sort of social credit and get a bunch of likes. It didn't make me feel good. Like that's not good. And then also a lot of psychedelics, a ton of psychedelic experiences from 2009 on, and with every one a greater understanding of the impact. Like I had one recently, and when I had the one recently, like the overwhelming message that I was getting through this was that everything I say and do ripples off into all the people that I interact with. And then if I'm not doing something with at least the goal of overall good or overall understanding, that I'm doing bad and that bad is a real thing. As much as you try to
Yeah.
ignore it because you don't interface with it instantly, and you're still creating unnecessary negativity, and that I should avoid that as much as possible. It was like an overwhelming message that this psychedelic experience was giving me, and I took it because I was just particularly anxious that day about the state of the world, particularly anxious about Ukraine and Russia and China and the political system that we have in this country and this incredibly polarizing way that the left and the right engage with each other. And God, it just seems so just tormented. And so I was just, some days I
Yeah.
think too much about it. I'm like, I need something to
Yeah.
crack me out of this. So I took these psychedelics.
Are you surprised psychedelic therapy has not made, from what you thought would happen in, say, the early 2010s till now, are you surprised it has not made more progress sort of on a path to legalization as a medical treatment?
No, no, I'm not, because there's a lot of people that don't want it to be in place, and those people have tremendous power over our medical system and over our regulatory system. And those people have also not experienced these psychedelics. There's very few people that have experienced profound psychedelic experiences that don't think there's an overall good for those things. So the problem is you're having these laws and these rules implemented by people who are completely ignorant about the positive effects of these things. And if you know the history of psychedelic prohibition in this country, it all took place during 1970, and it was really to stop the civil rights movement, and it was really to stop the anti-war movement. And they tried to find a way to make all these things that these people were doing that was causing them to think in these very different ways, this tune in, turn on, drop out. They just wanted to put a fucking halt to that. What better way than to lock everyone who participates in that in cages? Find the people who are producing it, lock them in cages, put them in jail for the rest of their life, make sure it's illegal, arrest people, put the busts on television, make sure that people are aware. And then there's also, you connect it to drugs that are inherently dangerous for society and detrimental, the fentanyl crisis, the crack cocaine crisis that we experienced in the 90s. Like all of those things, they're under the blanket of drugs. Psychedelic drugs are also talked about like drugs, even though they have these profound spiritual and psychological changes that they, imbibe the
I
person.
remember when I was in elementary school and I was in like drug education, they talked about, marijuana is really bad because it's a gateway to these other things, and there's this bad one, that bad one, heroin, whatever. And the very end of the line, the worst possible thing is LSD.
Did you take LSD and go, oh, they're lying?
Psychedelic therapy was definitely one of the like most important things in my life, and I assumed, given how powerful it was for me, like I struggled with like all kinds of anxiety and other negative things, and to like watch all of that go away in
Like that.
like I traveled to another country for like a week, did a few things, came back, a totally different person. And I was like, I've been lied to my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that this happened to me now. Talked to a bunch of other people, all similar experiences. I assumed, this was a while ago, I assumed it was, and I was like, very interested in what was happening in the US. I was like, particularly like looking at where MDMA and psilocybin were on the path. And I was like, all right, this is going to get through. Like this is going to like change the mental health of a lot of people in a really positive way. And I am surprised we have not made faster progress there, but I'm still optimistic we will.